everyone, or afternoon, depending on where you are. I'm Steve Lookner, coming to you here from the Right Side Broadcasting Studios. We are here for the Sean Spicer press briefing from the White House, live. We will be bringing that to you starting in about 6 minutes from now. Hope you enjoyed. We just were showing live Melania Trump making a rare public appearance. She gave out an award, well, a bunch of awards, the International Women of Courage Award, I believe it's called. But there were a number of recipients. Melania made some remarks. If you missed that, feel free to go. We have it posted on our YouTube site, Right Side Broadcasting. So check it out there. You can watch it. And it was nice to see Melania speak. Maybe she'll start doing more of these events. We'll see what happens. But a lot of people I know, I was looking at the comments when people were watching it in our chat room, and a number of people seemed very happy with her speech and were enjoying to see her speak. So glad we were able to bring that to you. And we brought you the whole ceremony. We didn't just bring you part of it. So we do that here. We like you to see the whole thing. Sean Spicer today, so he's going to be giving his briefing starting in about 5 minutes, a little early today. And it's one of those days, it's sort of a rare day when there's not like, in the last week or two, there's always been like 3 huge stories that it was pretty obvious he was going to be asked about. Today, not so sure, because it's not like there's one big story out there right now. Like, I'm sure he'll get questions on, should Devin Nunes recuse himself from running the House Intelligence Committee investigation of the Russia election, blah, blah, blah. He'll probably get some of that. I'm guessing he'll get some of these questions. Well, somebody's going to ask him, like, do you regret speaking to April Ryan in the way you did yesterday, which became this big viral thing on the internet. So I'm sure you've heard about this, but basically there's this woman, April Ryan, who's at a lot of the press briefings, if not all of them. I'm not sure which. But and she asked a question yesterday of Sean Spicer, and then she kept interrupting him, and then he eventually, and she was like shaking her head and like making facial gestures towards him, and finally he was just like, stop shaking your head at me. But when I saw it, it was just like, okay, this is some normal back and forth. She's been kind of difficult. She was difficult the day before in the press conference. She shouted at Attorney General Jeff Sessions, and to me there was nothing out of the ordinary. It was 2 people talking, whatever. And then I have to read all day all the stuff in the media about how Hillary Clinton said he was treating her in a bad way because she's a woman, and then other people were like, Sean Spicer's comments were disgraceful, and it's just totally. Also, another thing with this is just like totally taken out of context, where like people, I guarantee you the vast majority of people making these comments on the internet didn't watch even the whole question and answer the whole exchange between him and her, because if they did, they would have seen her interrupting and making her facial gestures, but also haven't seen her, don't know the context, which is just, 2 days ago, the press conference, she, shouted at Attorney General Sessions, like a very accusatory question. It wasn't like a normal kind of question a question you hear at a press briefing. She was like shouting at him as he was on his way out in a very, again, I would say the tone was accusatory. It just seemed inappropriate to me for that setting. And so people just love to take things out of context or don't do further research and just jump right to, Sean Spicer is disgraceful, he's being disgraceful to her, the women aren't treated well in the workplace, and blah, 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 and all this stuff. So it's just, it was driving me nuts yesterday. I posted a video about it where it's called Maggie Haberman's stupid tweet after the Sean Spicer April Ryan exchange. So if you want to know my fuller take on this whole thing, watch that video. It's posted on our right side on YouTube. But anyways, I'm guessing he'll be asked about that again. Hopefully they don't waste too much time on it, because to me it's just another one of these things where just everybody gets all up in an uproar over something which doesn't deserve getting in an uproar about. And just go search April Ryan, Sean Spicer briefing on Twitter and enjoy what you see there. All the posts from people, all outraged at his awful, disgraceful treatment of April Ryan. Anyways, so I'm just going to get angry if I talk about that more. So if you would like, this briefing is this Sean Spicer's press briefing is supposed to start in a minute. We will go to it right as it happens. We will come back after, do our post show as we always do here at Right Side Broadcasting. We do a pre-show and a post show for all the Sean Spicer briefings. But if before the briefing, if you'd like to try, maybe it'll start a little late, who knows. If you'd like to send in a comment, would love to hear your thoughts on the April Ryan thing, or the Nunes stuff, or the Melania Trump event that we just saw. Anything or what you hope to see in the briefing today. If you want to write me, you can direct message me on Twitter. I'm at @Lookner, at Lookner, or email me at steve.lookner@rsbn.tv. Also, feel free, send me a comment during the briefing if you see something that catches your eye that you want to talk about, because I'll talk about it during the post show. So I'm happy to take your comments for the post show. Would love to hear from you. What else is happening today that Sean Spicer might be asked about? So, I guess he might be asked about President, we've heard some rumblings that maybe healthcare reform isn't dead, and there were some reports about this yesterday saying maybe people in the White House and in Congress are working on some kind of revised healthcare bill or something, so maybe they'll get asked about that. Maybe Sean Spicer will be asked about the tax reform stuff. But no, it's just, again, it's a weird day because it's like no one sort of big story or stories where you're like, that's the things he's definitely going to be asked about. So a bit of a quiet day. But often when the days seem a little quiet news-wise, something big happens and everything goes nuts and everything perks up again. There was, just to update you, you might have heard this morning, there was a bit of an incident on Capitol Hill, where initially it was reported that somebody had tried to hit Capitol police officers with their car, and then had tried to run over police officers. And it turns out that it basically seems like it was it was a person just driving erratically, and they tried to pull the person over, and the person didn't pull over initially, and I think the person might have run into a cop car or something and kept driving, and there were some shots fired. I don't know exactly what the deal with that was, but basically the person was taken into custody, but it's not being reported as terror related. It seems to be reported as just an erratic driver who they pulled over tried to pull over for traffic violations, and they didn't pull over immediately. So doesn't seem to be any kind of thing there in terms of no injuries reported, which is good. So no injuries, not terrorism. That's good. If we hear anything else on that, we'll let you know. It's 12:02 Eastern time right now. Any minute now, the Sean Spicer press briefing will start. We will go to it live. Thank you, by the way. A couple people donated to us, if I remember right, during the Melania Trump event. It was Barbara, and I can't remember the second one. I can't remember. John, I think. John Hudson, maybe. Anyways, thanks so much for your donations. We really appreciate it. We, as I say every day, we rely on your donations to stay on the air. Without your support, we would not be broadcasting and not be able to bring events to you and bring our coverage to you. If you'd like to donate ever, we'd, of course, really appreciate it. All you got to do is click on the $sign at the bottom of the chat room. The chat room is up there next to the broadcast. Just click on the $sign. Even if you want to make a small donation, every donation helps. So thank you, people who donated so far. Thank you to the moderators for moderating during the Melania chat. I saw you doing some hard work moderating in there, keeping the chat a friendly, good place to talk. So thank you, moderators. And thank you for moderating right now as well. What else was I going to say? I forgot. And, if you'd like to I remember, I forget to say this. Feel free to subscribe to Right Side on YouTube if you haven't, and click the notifications icon, the little bell, to let you know whenever we're going live. So if you didn't know we were going live for the Melania event, check if you're subscribed and that you have that bell notification icon checked, so you can get all the live updates about Right Side on YouTube. And I remember now I'm going to remember something. So RSBN moderator Jude wanted me to remind everybody about the Facebook. There's a Gab. I don't even know what Gab is. I think it's like Twitter or something. Jake, maybe you can tell me. But Right Side has a Gab page or something, and I'll try to. I know I'm supposed to remind you of this. I need to pull up the email and get the address. Jake, it's not handy, is it? If it's not, I'll do it in the post show. I'll remind you. But I've been forgetting to do that, so I'll do that. I'll find it in between. But keep reminding me if I don't say that. I keep forgetting to say it. So, and someone can, if you want to, email me and tell me what exactly Gab is, because I have no idea. Because I'm out of it, and I'm out of touch, and I am not hip to everything. Let's see here. Just seeing, so 12:04 again, if you just joined us. We're waiting for Sean Spicer's press briefing. It was supposed to start 4 minutes ago. Sometimes it's late. You know, it happens. Sometimes it's 15 minutes late. Sometimes it starts right on time. As soon as it happens, we'll go right to it. And join us for the post show after. Please join us for the post show. We might even take a call on the post show. We took a call yesterday. That was fun. So we'd love to hear from you, get your feedback on things. One other story I just remembered that might be asked about today is supposedly there are a lot of preparations going on in North Korea for a possible next nuclear test. There's been a lot of activity reported there. So, you know, that might be asked about again. They've been doing a lot of testing lately. And it's just one of those things where, you know, every month or two they do some test of a missile or a nuclear weapon or some kind of rocket or something, and we hear about it. And, you know, we hear when people will say they're concerned about it and stuff. I just wonder if, like, one day a year from now, are they just going to, like, run some test of some really long-range missile, and then all of a sudden it's like, okay, they can hit us with a nuclear weapon now what do we do? I'd like to think that won't happen, but it is a big worry. It's a big worry, and it definitely is something which seems like it will become more and more significant. It's already very significant, but even more and more of a worry during President Trump's administration, so we'll keep an eye on that. And maybe it'll be asked about in the press briefing today. Gary, Indiana writes in. Gary, Indiana says, wondering if the progressive media complex stayed up all night thinking up more beat your wife questions for Sean Spicer. Yeah, Gary, join the ranks of our viewers who do not like the way the press has treated Sean Spicer in these briefings. And I will say, I thought April Ryan's question yesterday was the question she asked was something like, you know, what are you guys doing? Something like, what are you guys planning on doing to, like, rehabilitate your image? Because, you know, you have all the Russia stuff and all this stuff. And it was kind of a weird question, because it was like, and Sean Spicer pointed this out, because, you know, Sean Spicer, what he said is like, well, we don't have the Russia stuff, you have the Russia stuff. You know, what Sean Spicer said is, you're asking this as if there was some big scandal with Russia that made us look bad, but no evidence has come out that there was ever any collusion between the administration and Russia. So when you ask the question, like, what are you going to do about your image, you know, now that you have this Russia stuff, the question implies that there's this really awful Russia stuff that's hurt their image. And if there's Russia stuff that's hurt their image, it's just implications without evidence backing it up from the media, basically. So that seemed, I understood why Sean Spicer was upset with that question and said what he did. To me, it made complete sense what he said. So, but we'll see, Gary. We'll see what the media's questioning is like today. Thank you for your comment. Much appreciated. Oh, thank you, Jude, for writing in. Jude writes in, Gab is the free speech Twitter. Thank you, Jude. Our Gab ID is gab.ai/RSB network. Gab.ai/RSB network. So if you want to find Right Side Broadcasting and talk about it on Gab, which I got to check out Gab. I keep meaning to, and I keep forgetting to do it, so I will check it out, Jude. But thank you for writing in and telling us. Again, gab.ai/RSB network. It makes more sense now, though, because I frequently see people on Twitter with, like, gab.ai in their, like, Twitter description or Twitter. Oh, we're going to press briefing very shortly, so I'll finish my thought later. But definitely join us after for the post show. We're going to do some post show. We're going to talk about what happens in the briefing. We'll take your comments and your questions, and we'd love to see you after the briefing. So I think in a couple of seconds we're going to go there. I think. Yes, Jake? I'll keep talking. We're going there now, Jake. Yes? Yes. Okay, enjoy the briefing. We'll see you afterwards.
is currently hosting an opioid and drug abuse listening session with senior administration officials, governors, experts in the psychology of drug addiction, recovery awareness advocates, and others who've been affected by the opioid crisis. Drug abuse has crippled communities across this nation. In 2015, more than 52,000 Americans, that's 144 people a day, died from a drug overdose, with 63% involving an opioid, according to the CDC. Drug overdoses are now the leading cause of accidental death in our country. As the president discussed with the group this morning, we won't be able to address this epidemic with a single solution. First, we must get struggling Americans the help that they need. Too many families have seen firsthand the destruction that drug abuse can bring, and we must also focus prevention on law and enforcement. Cheap heroin is flooding into our communities as drug cartels expand into the country, setting off a chain reaction of addiction that spreads from person to person and from family to family. President Trump has already taken executive action to strengthen law enforcement and dismantle criminal cartels. He and his team will continue to discuss how best to root out this threat to American communities with drug enforcement experts as we continue this fight. Stopping this epidemic is an issue that every American, regardless of your political background, can and must get behind. We must work together, from the leaders of the most local and community recovery and support programs, all the way to the White House, to solve this problem. The White House took a big first step this morning in our battle to combat drug addiction and the opioid crisis by meeting with these individuals, which included New Jersey Governor Chris Christie, who has been a leader in this issue, Attorney General Sessions, Education Secretary DeVos, Veterans Administration Secretary Shulkin, Homeland Security Secretary Kelly, and others were in attendance. A full list of participants has been provided. I will say, I know the pool was just in there. It is some of the stories from some of the individuals who have been involved in this with a family member are unbelievably compelling. Their desire to see and to work with the administration to get this problem addressed is one that is plaguing communities, and I know the president places it at the highest priority. There was a mention by the acting administrator of the DEA that they have a program where twice a year they gather unwanted drugs. Last year they gathered over 1 million pounds of unwanted drugs. There's 5,000 sites in which people across America can drop off stuff in their medicine cabinet that is no longer used to get it out of their house. The next drop-off will be on April 29th, and I think the DEA will be putting out more information. But when you see some of the action that was taking place in this report, it is truly a call to arms for a crisis that is plaguing our country. This afternoon, the president will drop by the Women's Empowerment Panel that the White House is hosting, led by Florida Attorney General Pam Bondi, Education Secretary Betsy DeVos, Small Business Administrator Linda McMahon, U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations Nikki Haley, Senators for Medicare and Medicaid Services Seema Verma, who will all speak about the unique challenges that women and young girls face today. Vice President Pence and the First Lady will also be in attendance. The president is proud that his administration is full of so many female leaders, from whom will be on stage this afternoon, so that their incredible work doesn't always make headlines, but it's certainly felt across the federal government and across our nation. Women's History Month is coming to an end, but the Trump administration is committed to empowering women in the workplace. The work that we started this month will not end at the end of this month, but will continue. The president made women's empowerment priority throughout the campaign, speaking out on affordable child care and paid family leave, investing in women's health, and the barriers faced by female entrepreneurs and business owners. In February, he and Prime Minister Trudeau from Canada launched the United States-Canada Council for Advancement of Women Entrepreneurs. This month, the First Lady hosted an event for International Women's Day in the East Wing. CMS Administrator Verma hosted a panel on women in healthcare. His daughter Ivanka held a roundtable with women business owners with SBA Administrator McMahon, as well as other roundtable with Latina business owners. And just earlier today, the First Lady joined the Undersecretary of State for Political Affairs, Tom Shannon, to present the 2017 Secretary of State's International Women of Courage Award at the State Department. The president believes, as the First Lady said this morning, quote, "Wherever women are diminished, the entire world is diminished with them. However, wherever women are empowered, towns, villages, schools, and economies are empowered, and together we're all made stronger." The Trump administration will continue to work to ensure that the American economy is a place where women can work and thrive. Later this evening, the Vice President will participate in the swearing in of David Friedman as the next ambassador to Israel. The President is glad that Ambassador Friedman will be officially on board as we strive for a lasting peace in the Middle East. Mr. Friedman's strong relationships in Israel will be a tremendous asset to the President in furthering that mission. Finally, I want to speak about Judge Gorsuch and the blatantly political obstruction of his nomination to the Supreme Court by Senate Democrats. Yesterday, the Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell said that next Friday, the Senate will vote to confirm Neil Gorsuch to the Supreme Court. We welcome this news. Unfortunately, Senate Democrats have begun justifying their opposition to Judge Gorsuch by claiming a 60-vote standard for his confirmation. That standard doesn't exist, and these claims continue to be false. A party line filibuster by the Senate minority is not a fair up or down vote. You don't have to look further than the voices of many of these same Democrats to see why. In 2013, Senator Tom Udall said, and I quote in full, "Some of us may disagree with Justice Scalia on judicial philosophy, but he was a qualified nominee. He received an up or down vote, and he was unanimously confirmed. Likewise," he said, "Judge Ruth Bader Ginsburg was considered a liberal, the former ACLU general counsel. Many on the other side may have disagreed with her views, but there was no filibuster. She was confirmed by a vote of 96-3, end quote. He added, quote, "A minority in the Senate should not be able to block qualified nominees," end quote. We could not agree more with Senator Udall. Unfortunately, he has now adopted a new party line of obstruction in blocking a fair up or down vote on the confirmation of Judge Gorsuch. It's both sad and unfortunate, and we encourage all senators from both parties to fairly evaluate the judge's eminent qualifications and grant him an up or down vote. With that, I'd be glad to take your questions. April,
Well, thank you, Sean.
how are you today?
I'm fine, and how are you?
Fantastic.
Well, Sean, going back to some issues that are in the news, Nunez is not going to recuse himself. In the midst of all of this back and forth, what does the White House say about that?
Well, April, the White House, as I think I mentioned this yesterday, I mean, he's conducting an investigation. He is the elected or appointed, I can't remember how they do HIPSI over there, but appointed and confirmed or however but by his colleagues in the House and the Speaker. He is the chairman. He's conducting an investigation. It is up to the House of Representatives and the Speaker and the members of the House Republican Conference to determine. But I mean, there's nothing that I see that is problematic in him conducting an investigation that we asked both the House and Senate Intelligence Committees.
What are the conversations the President is having with Paul Ryan about this? Because many, to include Dems and Republicans, are talking about what looks like impropriety in the Intel chief's handling of this so far, particularly as there's not a hearing right now.
Well, I would take issue with I think you're right that there may appear to be certain things, but I don't think there's any actual proof or sustaining allegation about anything that's done. Again, I mentioned this yesterday. If you look at what Chairman Nunez has done, he has met with people who are cleared to discuss classified information regarding a review that he is conducting. That's how it's supposed to work. And again, I understand that when things are leaked out in the media, that somehow that is a standard that's acceptable, but when two people who are cleared to discuss classified information, or three or however many, discuss classified information, somehow that's wrong because it's not being leaked. He is conducting a review, which we have supported on both sides of the chambers, and I think that they should do this. But I think to start to prejudge where this thing is going, we have been supportive of it, as you know, and I think that let's let that process bear itself out and see what happens. I will tell you that I've seen reports in the media that the NSA has documents that they are supposedly trying to get to the House Intelligence Committee that have been requested. We think that's a great thing, if that's in fact what's happening. But again, I think part of this all gets back to that there is a process. And I get that sometimes it's frustrating to us. I believe that we want this over as much as I think some of you, but we recognize that there's a process that has to take place. And that process is taking place. The chairman and the House Intelligence, and I know that Senator Burr and Senator Warner are talking about the process that they're going to go on the Senate side. Some of these things take a little bit of time. and to the extent that they are gathering the appropriate documents and looking at those things, then that's part of the process and the review that is being undertaken, and we're fine with that.
And second topic, tax reform and infrastructure, reports are saying you're gonna do it together, and ACA, Obamacare, going into Trump care at that time, tax reform and infrastructure were said to be some of the reasons why you did not come up in the budget with eliminating the debt. Do you have cost estimates as it relates to tax reform and infrastructure as of yet?
No, because I think you need to have plans laid out first, and I think part of this is that we're in the beginning phases of both of those. To have a score on either one of them or a cost when we don't have those formalized yet, and I think we're in the beginning phases of having those discussions with both stakeholders, members of Congress on both sides, and obviously internally, the formulation of those plans is continuing. So until that happens, I don't see us having a formal cost or a score.
CBO now?
It's not a question of trust. Remember, I want to be clear about what I've said before. I think when it comes to cost estimates and budget issues, which is what CBO is charged to do, they are the Congressional Budget Office. And while I think sometimes they're a little off on that, that is what they're charged with doing. And I think there's a score where I think it's not a question of trust, it's a question of accuracy. And I think that the issue that we previously brought up was when they had scored people in coverage, which isn't necessarily their wheelhouse, they had been way off. And again, I don't think it's a question of us trusting or not. It's literally a question of saying they believed that 26 million people would be on Obamacare, 10.4 were and falling. I think that's not a question of whether we trust them or not. It's a question of that those are the facts. And those facts bear out that they were off by more than 50% when it came to counting people. And I just want to be clear that it's not a question of whether we trust them. I would ask whether that's really what they're supposed to be doing. Major.
Sean, let's go over a couple of things that we talked about on Monday. On Monday, you said to us from the podium you would look into how Chairman Nunes was cleared here and with whom he met. Can you give us, we tried to ask you that yesterday as you walked out. Do you have any information to live up to the commitment you made here on Monday to provide more details about how that happened in a process you just told us that, again, is above board and totally appropriate?
I don't have anything for you on that at this time. But again, I don't.
What are you looking into?
I have asked some preliminary questions. I have not gotten answers yet, and I think so no, I don't have anything further on that. But again, I would argue, Major, it's interesting, and I brought this up the other day, that there seems to be this fascination with the process. It's how did he get here? What door did he enter? As opposed to what's the substance of what we're finding. When I get, not from you, and I'm not trying to be, but it's so many times I get these calls that we have an unnamed intel source that says the following substance occurred. Do you admit it? Do you deny it? Whatever. And we have this argument over substance. In this case, the fascination is with what door did he come in? Who did he meet with? How did it get waved in? As opposed to what I think it should be, and ironically it's not when it's the shoes on the other foot, is what's the substance? Just yesterday, just to be clear, we started this day with the Washington Post falsely posting a story saying the White House blocked Sally Yates, right? By the end of the day, it's officials blocked Sally Yates. They were wrong, and they jumped to a conclusion based on whatever unnamed sources. And I think that what we're trying to do is argue that there should be a process. The chairman of the House Intelligence Committee and others are going through a review. We support that review. And so as much as I understand that everyone wants to jump to how did everyone get in? What did they do? They're undergoing an investigation.
I have a substantive question about that.
Okay.
But I'm just asking you about something you told us.
No, I said I would look into it.
Are you going to continue to look into it?
I will. I will look into it, and whether or not.
You live up to that obligation.
No, I will. But the obligation is, I said I would look into it, and I would continue to do that.
Okay. So you said yesterday about Sally H. Show what you know. Well, one of the reasons that there's this question about Chairman Nunes is he hasn't told his own committee members what he knows, how he learned about it, and what the substantive importance of that is. So we are also curious about that. And among the things that might be, or might shed light on that, is how he got here and who he met with and what he learned.
Right.
We're trying to figure that out as well.
I understand, and I think those are questions for
Don't you
him.
wanna know those
And I think, I also think,
He
but
should be
I
held
think
to.
that, Major, that there's a slippery slope that we're talking about here, because if we start looking into certain things, then the accusation the next day is going to be, you looked into this, can you look into that? Why did you ask this person or not? I mean, a couple of weeks ago when there were stories about whether or not we called certain people and we didn't. So we're damned if we're doing, we're damned if we don't on this stuff, because on the one hand, you want certain answers. On the other hand, you want to talk about us being involved. And I think we've tried to keep, if we asked for an investigation, and at the same time, we've tried to make sure that we allow that review to go on, that both the House and the Senate Intelligence. So we can't cherry pick every time that you decide that a piece of information is relevant to what you want. I think that we know that they are undertaking a review. Hold on.
Going on, and the members of the very committee
But that's-
themselves say they don't know
Fair enough,
what is
and
being
that's
discussed.
right.
How is the process going forward? How is that a workable process?
Okay, but what I'm saying is, the answer to that question is, that's a question for Chairman Nunes. I don't have any authority over how the House Intelligence Committee conducts itself. That's a question.
You have authority about whether he gets into this building and can
I-
review secured information on this site.
But how he conducts himself with his members, when and where he shares things, et cetera, are issues for him and the committee and the House of Representatives, not for us. That's it, plain and simple. John.
Sean, we know that members of the House Freedom Caucus, the Tuesday Group, Republican Study Group, are up on the Hill trying to see if they could come to some sort of an agreement to find a way forward on health care. How real does the White House think this possibility of resurrecting health care is?
Well, I think the president from the early days of his campaign talked about repealing and replacing. It's a commitment that he made. I think he'd like to get it done. But he also understands, and I want to be completely consistent with two things. One is he understands that in order to get to 216, we have to make sure that it does what he said it was going to do, that it achieves those goals of lowering costs and creating more options. And so we're not going to create a deal for the sake of creating a deal that ends up being not in the best interest of the American people. You've got to know when to walk away from a deal that is going to end up bad. And he wants to have a good deal. And so the deal that he's looking for is willing to have members come and talk to him and engage with on this whole area and figure out what it would take, what their ideas are to get there, to grow that vote. And if they can do that and get to an area where we will have a majority of the House and can move it to the Senate, then we're going to engage in that. But we've seen members of both sides of the aisle engage with the White House on ways that are potentially ways to get there. And so it's a conversation, and we're not trying to jam that down anyone's throat right now. It's an ongoing discussion.
Does the White House share the frustration of many Republicans in Capitol Hill and the sentiments that the House Freedom Caucus, quote, botched this?
I think the president's comments on this speak for themselves.
I just have one more.
Of course.
And on the same thing. The president and members of the White House have suggested that maybe we could get some Democrats on board, healthcare reform. That the fact that no Democrat, not even one Democrat, supported the last attempt, and given the desires of the Freedom Caucus versus what the Democrats would be looking for, is it reasonable to think that even one Democrat would come on board this?
No. I mean, I think it is not unreasonable
No, I said, is it reasonable?
I think it depends on how they want to get there. I mean, again, there's a balancing act. It's not about just picking up one. It's picking up enough to get to 216, and it's what does that take without compromising the principles that you want to achieve. So is it possible? Sure, that there's a handful or so, or maybe more, Democrats that are willing to engage, but it's worth the conversation. But again,
isn't this kind of a Banner tactic to say, okay, if you're not going to work with us,
It's not-
House
no,
Freedom
it's a-
Caucus, we're going to go to the Democrats?
No, it's a tactic to get to. I mean, it's a math tactic. It's how do you get to 216 in this case, and it's engaged with whoever will get you to that number. Now, as I mentioned yesterday, I mean, over the course of 17 months, Obamacare, failed and started multiple times. It went off on multiple different tracks, including single payer, until it finally came back, and ultimately, upon Scott Brown's election, they jammed it through and did it so quick to make sure that the Secretary of Human Services, but I get it. And so we're 21 days into this process, 22 probably today. So we'll see. But I think the idea that the president has put out there is that if people want to float ideas and suggestions on how we can grow this vote and get to a majority, he'll entertain them. Tamara.
Yeah, thank you. I have sort of a lightning round about opioids. Is a commission being created? Is Chris Christie the head of that commission? He was sort of talking about it, but I haven't seen anything on it. And what sort of timeline will that commission have in terms of presenting findings, or what's the goal of this thing?
Well, I think it's easier to start with the goal. I think if you see the roundtable, and I know the pool will have a readout of this afterwards, the goal is to figure out, I think Governor Christie's been a leader of this in New Jersey. It's an issue that plagues countless communities more and more. And so, whether it's New Hampshire or other places in the Midwest, it's sitting there and figuring out best practices and how can we get it down and how can we provide the treatment. I think the DEA administrator was noting in the discussion that we've gotten really good at law enforcement, right? But the question is, how do we focus on the treatment? How do we focus on the prevention? How do we look at things that happened in the past to deter drug addiction from starting in the first place and to deter young people in particular from starting with drugs? To now, how do we help families cope with this? There's a lot of it, and I think today is the first step of bringing some of these stakeholders together. But like I just mentioned on the other thing, I appreciate that everyone wants the answers, but I think that there's a reason that you're looking at this as two things: a whole of government and a whole of person, right? It's looking at how do we look at people to help them get the recovery, stay clean, not start in the first place, help them get them into treatment centers, help them get a job afterwards. I mean, there's a lot of whole of person, but then there's a whole of government. As I mentioned, you're looking at around that table today, you've got families and parents and individuals who have been personally affected in one way, shape, or form. You've got Governor Christie, who's dealt with it at a state level. You've got Pam Bondi, who's looked at it from a state level. You've got Secretary Kelly, who's looking at it from Homeland Security, DEA, who's looking at it partially from a law enforcement. Then you've also got Secretary of DeVos, who's looking at it from an education and a prevention. And it is a big, big issue that is plaguing our country, plaguing our communities, and plaguing our families. And so I wish I could give you an answer and say this is how we're going to solve the problem. But I think the first step is understanding the problem, the magnitude of it, and looking at how we approach it holistically. Yeah.
The timeline for them coming back with findings, and then the president, when he was campaigning, seemed to endorse the STOP Act, which would prevent fentanyl from being imported, or help to prevent fentanyl from being imported from countries like China. Would he use his presidential bully pulpit to sort of push for that legislation now, which has not really gotten off the ground yet over in Congress?
That was one of the, not the specific piece of legislation, not the STOP Act in particular, but I think there was a lot of discussion about fentanyl and the rise of it today. And I think the Attorney General brought that up and was talking about the escalation of that from the 1980s to now. And so there is a look at it. But I again, as I mentioned, you've got the Attorney General there, law enforcement education. Part of this is to really look at this and figure out what are the ways that we can address it from coming into the country. And the DEA administrator was talking about it, especially the flow from the southern border. But then you look at it from a law enforcement issue, a prevention issue, and a treatment issue. And this is I wish I could give you a really easy answer and say, here's the silver bullet that's going to stop this. But we recognize the growth of this problem in this epidemic, and how do we solve it going forward? John Gizzi.
Thank you, Sean. Yesterday, Prime Minister Theresa May signed the letter that began the process for Brexit. A week ago, on Friday, Jean-Claude Juncker, who is the president of the European Commission, used some unusually strong language about the president, saying that his comments encouraging other Brexits could lead to war among the Balkan countries. And he also said in the end, and is quoted on page 1 of the Financial Times, that the president does not know a lot about Europe. What is the president's response to that?
To Brexit in particular? Or
To the comments by President Juncker of the European Commission and to Brexit.
I think the president is very well steeped in world affairs, especially Europe, NATO, all the issues. He was a leader in the effort to call Brexit, as you know. And obviously with respect to that, we respect the will of the British electorate and Her Majesty's government in taking steps of departing the European Union, whatever future the UK-EU relationship looks like. We want the UK to remain a strong leader in Europe, for both the UK, the EU, and Europe to remain strong leaders globally. So, I think both on the EU and on that's Ronica.
Thank you. I have two questions or topics, if you will. Just the first, what's the White House reaction to the shooting today at the Capitol?
Well, it sounds like a very troubled individual. Obviously, I'll let law enforcement read that out, but I don't want to get ahead of. From what I understand and what I've seen, it's sounds like a very troubling instance. I think, again, I don't want to get ahead of this, but it looks like law enforcement. I appreciate the efforts that the Capitol Police and others took. I mean, you literally watched people put their lives in harm's way today to protect tourists and other citizens, and so I want to commend the work of the Capitol Police and the work of law enforcement to continue to protect us at this time when Washington is in its glory with the cherry blossoms out and so many people are coming here to visit the Tidal Basin and their House of Representatives and the Senate and walk around Washington, D.C. It's reassuring to know that so many brave men and women are willing to put their lives on the line to make sure that the city stays safe.
A second topic. Last weekend, the president spent the weekend here, not at Mar-a-Lago. I'm wondering, was that in any way in response to some of the pushback he's received about the cost associated with those trips? And part two of that, does he plan to be here again this weekend?
So no, yes. He will. The president wanted to be here last weekend. He wants to be here this weekend. He'll be here, and then I will have updates on where he'll be going forward. But
Does he feel any concern about that pushback?
no, he feels great. Hunter.
Thank you, Sean. President Trump is reportedly expected to sign legislation that would allow internet service providers to monitor internet activity and sell that information without users' permission. Will he be signing that legislation, and why does he think it's good for America? I'm wondering who this benefits apart from ISPs and their executives.
I know the House and the Senate have just passed that. When they enroll it, then we'll have further updates on that. I'm not. When we have, I know that I believe we have a statement of administration policy on that bill out, and when we have further updates on a signing ceremony, I will let you know.
Doesn't this erosion of protections create major risks for people to use that information for nefarious purposes? Also, hostile nations potentially looking at what congressmen are browsing online. Like, is that concerning to the White House?
I think there's, as I mentioned, that we have a statement of administration policy on that bill. That we'll have further updates, and when we do, we sign it. I'm sure we'll have further details on why. Zeke.
John, two questions on two topics for you. The commander of CENTCOM was up on the Hill earlier today and testified that the U.S. government believes that Russia has been supplying materially the Afghan Taliban. I was wondering if the White House has any response to that testimony, and does it believe that that's a constructive effort?
I'm sorry, who's testifying?
The commander of CENTCOM.
Yeah, okay.
That that's a constructive effort on the part of the Russian government in that region.
I know there are several entities looking into this, and I'm not gonna. I will say that DOD's response speaks for itself. We understand the intelligence on this. The president's been briefed on it, so I'm not really sure what specifically you're.
You're not condemning that action on the part of the Russian government right now.
I think the commander, the CENTCOM commander's testimony speaks for itself on that.
Second topic for you. About a month from now, the government will run out of money for another CR, as I'm sure you're aware. The president talked a lot about the campaign and in his budget request, funding for a border wall on the southern border with Mexico. Is that a deal breaker for the president in any sort of government funding measure in the next month or so?
So on April 29th, the CR expires, the continuing resolution, and we are going to be working with Congress on that, on the FY17 budget that needs to go forward. I know Director Mulvaney has talked about that. I'm not going to get into the specific details. I know that if you saw the budget that put out, I think it's $1.6 or $1.7 billion that he's initially put in the FY17 for the beginning of that wall, and there's 2.6
billion isn't there.
I think that is our request. We will continue to work with Congress on how to move forward with the rest of fiscal year 17's budget. Blake?
Hey, Sean, let me pick up where John left off on healthcare. The president here last night, speaking to senators, said, quoting here, "I know that we're all going to make a deal on healthcare that is such an easy one. I have no doubt that it's going to happen very quickly." What is the renewed sense of optimism, and what exactly is very quickly?
Well, I think there's a little bit of sound that needs to go with that. I think he was having a little bit of fun with some previous comments that have been made with respect to how easy it would be to get health care. But there is a renewed sense because I think, the comments and the calls that the president has gotten, as well as the vice president and other members of the senior team that have come in and said, we believe that there is a path forward. We have some ideas. We'd like to talk to you about that. I know I've seen some of the reports that have been put out regarding some of the individual members of the Senate and the House that have been up here meeting with our team. And I think there's a lot of people who have some ideas about how to move forward, and we're entertaining those. But I think the interesting thing is that despite the setback that we got last Friday, I think there is a renewed willingness from a lot of members who've made commitments to the American people and to their voters that they want to see this done, and they understand that not getting this done means that, as I said, and the president echoed when he went up to the House Republican Conference, that there's going to be a consequence for this. People need to be taken at their word. There's a lot of members that made a commitment to their voters, to their constituents, that they were going to get something done on this and repeal and replace it and address the healthcare situation, and that hasn't gotten done. And I think that's a concern for them.
And let me ask you real quickly, you say that you embrace the House Intelligence Committee review of all of this. John McCain said earlier today that because of the potential schism within that committee, that there should be a select committee that goes from this. Would you embrace that if that happens, and what would your response?
Again, I'm not going to get into House and Senate matters, but I as I mentioned at the outset to April, I believe that people, like, all that is, how they conduct themselves internally is up to them. That's obviously not for us to decide. But I think the question that I still think is outstanding is that what has happened is that a review was called for, that part of it was already ongoing from what I understand, especially on the House side. And the chairman of that committee has gone and sought information and individuals who believe that information to further the review. I'm really not sure how that's anything other than what you're supposed to do. And I think that is consistent with what he's talked about. Dave Boyer.
Sean, thanks. Two questions. You mentioned Senator Udall opposing the Gorsuch nomination. He was here at that party last night. Did the president try to work with the room with him and other Democrats about the nomination last night?
I know he and the First Lady and others spoke to a variety of senators. I wasn't keeping tabs on everybody that he spoke to, but I do know that he had an opportunity to speak to a lot of different senators, and he's talked to a lot on the phone. So I don't know about Senator Udall himself.
And secondly, 2/3 of the Democratic senators did not attend the party last night. Did that disappoint the president?
I think we were excited to see the 1/3 that did. I know Senator Schumer was there, Senator Durbin. There were a lot of folks. And again, I think that I'm sure the president will continue to do things like this. It was an amazing opportunity to have a moment sort of free of politics and to enjoy some collegial moments with each other in the White House and listen to some of the United States and Marine Corps bands play some amazing music and bring people together. And I think the president's talked about this. He's mentioned this a bunch of times, that there used to be a time when you could sit down and share a meal together, and I think that's what he's been trying to do, is bring groups back in and at least just have a conversation and get to that human side a little bit. And so yesterday was a good start, I think. Jonathan.
Hey, Sean, the president's got in his inbox a letter from Senate Democrats, and the Democrats say they are ready and willing to work with the president on improving Obamacare. They just have a couple of conditions. First, the president has to abandon his efforts to completely repeal the law and rescind the executive order. This letter is signed by the vast majority of the Democrats in the U.S. Senate. What does the president say?
I think, as the president's noted, we're willing to engage with people. I think they understand his principles. We need to repeal the law and replace it with something better. I understand.
But they're saying they want you to take full repeal off
I understand
the
what
table.
I've seen parts of the letter, and I know that 40 of them saw that. And I think what we need to do is figure out who wants to engage in a constructive conversation. I understand what they want, but again, it's not just a one-way street. I think the president has made very clear what he wants to do. And I think that to the extent that some of them want to have a conversation, we have a 52-seat majority in the Senate. If there are individuals in there that want to have a constructive conversation achieving the goals, we can do it. But I think they also need to understand the president's red lines.
But they say as a first step, they want him to repeal that executive order. That's something he is willing to do.
I think the president's committed to making sure that he continues to go down the path that he's gone down. And there are ways that if they want to join him, that they can. And I think there are some areas that they may want to engage with him on that we've seen so far. And so, look, I understand they have a right to put out a letter and draw their lines in the sand, but I think the president's committed to going down the path he is. And obviously, first step is to get to 216 in the House and then address the concerns in the Senate. But he's continued to have conversations with the Senate. And I think that as Obamacare continues to struggle, which it is, the premiums continue to go up and up. I think the question is, will those 40 people understand that they are the ones who are going to be responsible for owning the current policies that are making so many Americans struggle?
But
Jim.
just to clarify, was he joking when he said that making a deal on healthcare would be an easy one?
I think if you watch the tape, it was a lighthearted moment, Jonathan, and so he was having
He
a little.
doesn't think it's easy to
No,
get a
he
good
was.
deal on
Yeah,
healthcare.
no. Watch. He was having a fun time with the senators there. Jim.
The other thing that the president said last night was our soldiers are fighting like never before in Iraq. But as you know, Sean, U.S. Troops there are in a support role, an advise and assist role. What does he mean? What does the president mean when he says they're fighting there like never before? Obviously,
I think
doesn't
it's-
take into consideration what happened during the Bush administration and the Obama
No.
administration.
I
They were fighting
appreciate.
house to house.
Yeah, I think that there's been some progress, particularly in Mosul, the way that they have taken back that city, and I think that for a long time there was a lot of concern about Iran moving in and dominating parts of Iraq, and I think with the advice and consent of U.S. military advisors, there's been tremendous progress in moving Iraq forward to an area of stability and to continuing to see the troops there in Iraq stand on their own. And I think that he is very pleased with the action that General Mattis and our soldiers and sailors, airmen, and Marines are taking to do that. Jeff?
I was going to follow up. If you couple that comment with the comment on healthcare, it being the easy one to get that done, it sounds like you probably have heard this and come across this notion that he's just detached from reality in making those comments.
First of all, I think that I again would respectfully ask you that you review the tape. He was having a lighthearted moment. It's on tape. Everybody watched it. He was poking fun and making a joke. There's been comments before about how he didn't get it, and he was joking about how easy it was. Okay, it was a lighthearted moment. It was on tape. I think everybody, and the idea that there's this, like, trying to make it look like, you know, he was being utterly serious at the time is a little bit of a stretch.
And one quick thing on Chairman Nunes.
But just so we're clear, I'm sorry,
Yeah,
just to end
yes,
there,
sir.
that he was very proud of the work that our soldiers and sailors are doing over there in Iraq. There is a lot of work and a lot of progress that is being made, and the updates that he's getting from General Mattis on a daily basis.
He doesn't think they're in combat, they're engaged in
No,
combat.
but again, I think the progress that's being made in Iraq and the fight against ISIS is going extremely well, and he's proud of it.
And I was just going to ask you very quickly on Chairman Nunes. Do you personally know who the source of Chairman Nunes' information is?
No.
You do not.
Jeff Mason.
One on two topics. First on healthcare. Does the president want to start a new healthcare bill or tweak the one that did not go last week?
I think we're starting with where we are and trying to move that forward. I think that is the current vessel.
And on a separate topic, the president did not mention the Paris Agreement yesterday when he went to the EPA. Can you update us on his current thinking about that? Does he want the United States to stay in? And if he does, how does he expect the United States to meet its commitments without the Clean Power Plan?
I think that the Paris Agreement is still under discussion within the administration.
Do you have a
John?
deadline on when you'll know?
I can try to look into that. I don't have one at this time.
Thank you, Sean. Early voting has begun in the Georgia 6th Congressional District special election to fill the seat of Secretary Price. Some Democrats are billing this as a referendum on the president, the early days of the presidency. What does the White House think of that? Does President Trump plan to be involved at all in this race?
That's a good. Honestly, I've not even thought about it. I think that if needed, the president has always been very clear that he wants to support the team and help the team. Honestly, I've not tried to really focus on tried to shed that previous life a little. So I've not looked into the race in Georgia. I'm sure I'd best refer you to either the RNC or the NRCC on the state of that race. Okay, thank you guys very much. I'll see you tomorrow, Thursday. Take care. I do owe you one tomorrow, I'm sorry.
Welcome back, everyone. Hope you enjoyed the Sean Spicer press briefing from the White House. This is the post coverage of the Sean Spicer press briefing, and we'll go over some of the stuff that we'll talk about some of the stuff that Sean Spicer talked about. Also, we're going to take some of your calls. If you want to call in, we'd love to take your calls. The number is, I'm going to give you the number. I have it written down here. It is 202-470-0049 if you'd like to call in and talk about the press briefing or any of the big issues going on right now affecting the country and involving President Trump, such as what's going on with tax reform, what's going on with health reform, with the health bill. Will it come back? Will it not? all kinds of stuff happening. We'd like to hear from you and hear what you think. So feel free to call in, give us a call. I wanted to mention, I put my phone aside, but I had it with me. See, if I hold my phone here, it causes the microphone to make noise and stuff. But I wanted to just also tell you that we have here at Right Side today, we are going to be covering, at 3 o'clock Eastern, there is a women's empowerment panel hosted by the White House. President and Mrs. Trump are putting together this women's empowerment panel. And this is, now, Sean Spicer had said that President Trump will be there, but this is the details of the panel. It's moderated by Pam Bondi, who's the Attorney General of Florida. We have, the panelists are Betsy DeVos, Secretary of Education, Nikki Haley, the U.S. Ambassador to the UN. We have Linda McMahon, who's the administrator of the Small Business Association, and the last one is Seema Verma, the administrator of the Centers for Medicaid and Medicare and Medicaid Services, which is also called CMS. They will all be on a panel at the White House, these women, and the Women's Empowerment Panel it's called, and we will be bringing you live coverage of that at 3 p.m. Eastern, so we hope you tune in for that. I don't know if Melania will be speaking at that. Yes, Jake. Okay, cool. And just to let people know, we know a bunch of you watch Margaret Howell's DC Report live stream at night. Margaret because of a personal commitment, she won't be able to do her live stream tonight. So sorry about that if you're planning on watching it, but I'm sure she will be back soon. So we will let you know exactly when we know. But I'm guessing she's planning on doing it as usual this week. All right, so, and if you want to write in, we'd like to hear your comments about, either the press briefing or just what's going on in the world today in general, in politics or other news. Let us know. Send a comment in. It's an interesting day today because, as I said before in the pre-show, it's not like there's like most days since President Trump took office, there's been like one or two really huge stories everybody was focusing on. Today, not really like that. So, different kind of day today. So, feel free to talk about whatever's in the news that you want to talk about. Send a comment in. I'm at Lookner on Twitter, at LOOKNER. Send me a direct message there, or send me an email, steve.lookner@rsbn.tv. I'll read your comment or email on the air. And again, if you want to call in, we'd love to hear from you on the phone. That's always fun. 202-470-0049. Did you think the press at the press briefing acted any differently than they've been acting before? What do you think? So there was this interesting moment about where at the start of the briefing, the first question Sean Spicer asked, the first question Sean Spicer let April Ryan ask the question. April Ryan is the woman who they had this exchange yesterday that the press portrayed as the media portrayed as Sean Spicer being, a lot of them said he was disgraceful and stuff and sexist, and I didn't think any of those things. But they did have this exchange that went, I guess, sort of viral yesterday. But he asked her, he let her ask the first question, and they had a nice, pleasant back and forth, how are you, April? How are you, Sean? So everything seemed to be fine there. Not that there was anything not fine to begin with. So, although she did this thing where she asked three questions. I don't like that. She asked so many follow-up questions or so many questions when I've seen several times in press briefings when she does this. And I feel like she shouldn't be doing that. You know why? Because if everybody did that, the press briefing would either take 7 hours or fewer people would be able to ask questions. So it's like she's doing this at the expense of somebody else's time. So it's sort of understood to me there. You get maybe one quick follow-up, but you don't ask 3 or 4 questions. And I wonder if the rest of the press there just hates her when she does that. Because everybody can't do that, obviously, and she's just taking up somebody else's time. So, I don't know. I don't know if they have some agreement where she's allowed to ask more questions. I find it kind of annoying. If I was in the press, I would be annoyed by it. Okay, let me check. I think we have somebody wrote in on Twitter here I want to get to. This is from Binary Agent. Binary Agent writes, "We need to see more independent and citizen media in the press room and less mainstream media. Would be beautiful to see those YouTubers asking questions." Thank you, Binary Agent. You know, that would be nice, although I will say this. When they have, like, Skype people people coming in on Skype and asking questions, it tends to be, the questions tend to be kind of standard. So I guess, to me, it's not just different people would be interesting to have in there, but different people asking different types of questions, and not like the questions you normally get from the mainstream media. But, you know, I don't know, maybe I guess what I'm thinking is like some kind of informal round table or something. But you know, it's that briefing, I feel like the times they let, you know, people who aren't normally in there and let them ask a question, the question tends to be pretty standard because people don't want to make waves or stuff like that. But you know, it'd be nice to see some non-mainstream media in there, but also asking all kinds of different questions that you might normally not see asked. But I agree with you, Binary Agent. Unfortunately, right now, you know, it's a small room. They don't have the room for many people. They have a lot of big outlets that have been there for a while, so that's the way it is for right now. But thanks for writing in. Appreciate it. Sightless Seer writes in, "When you get a reporter on scene at Spicer briefings and other events, would RSBN watchers be able to submit questions they could ask?" So I will say this, if we did have somebody there, Sightless Seer, at the briefing, yes, of course we would get suggestions about questions to ask. We would ask you for suggestions about what to ask. Now, I don't know if that'll ever happen, and as I just said, it's a very small room, so it's hard to get new people in there, but if we happen to get somebody in there, we would definitely reach out to you for possible questions. Ham Freed writes in, Ham Freed says, "Will you be looking into the story on CTH that Obama stooge admitted they spied on the campaign?" I have not heard about this story. I will do a little research on it. So if it seems like something that has evidence to back it up, yeah, sure, we will talk about it on the air, but I haven't heard about it yet. But thank you for the heads up, Hamfried. I will look at that, look it up later. And hold on, I just need to pull up my email here just in case anybody emails. And also I have a message here. This is from Greg. Greg Jackson writes in, subject, Major Garrett. "I've noticed a decided attitude change with Major Garrett ever since he went to CBS. In the past, I considered him a reasoned reporter. Ever since Trump had that presser at his hotel, Major has been overly hostile. He was visibly mad as hell right after that event." So, you know, thank you for writing in about Major Garrett, Greg Jackson. And, you know, I wonder, like, just in general, if you're somebody who was on Fox and you go to, like, a different non-Fox network, do you feel pressure to, like, not have the same views you had on Fox? Or is it kind of understood you won't? Like when Greta Van Susteren went from Fox to MSNBC, and I can't say I've had her show on in the background, but I don't watch enough to really comment on what she acts like every day. But, like, was she under the understanding that, like, she couldn't be the exact same way politically that she was on Fox if she was going to be on MSNBC? So, but you clearly think, Greg, that there's a big attitude change with Major Garrett since he left Fox and went to CBS. And we have a call in a second, but you clearly think that Major Garrett has had an attitude change and you don't like it. So, Greg, thank you for writing in. We have a phone call. This is Samantha. Hello, Samantha. Where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Arkansas. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you for calling from Arkansas. So, Samantha, what did you have to say today?
You're going to get an awful lot of ridicule. Anyone is who objects to the Syrian migration to the United States. Here's a stopper for them, though. How many can I sign you up for? Sign you up for? What do you mean sign us up for? To house, feed, and clothe yourselves. How many of them are you willing to take under your own roof so that this doesn't become a welfare fiasco and make a whole lot of other American citizens plunge even deeper into economic hardship? Are you willing to do that? And if they're not willing to do that, then I think that it's pretty safe to say that they're very hypocritical in saying that you are some sort of intolerant bigot because you don't want them here.
So Samantha, if I'm getting your point right, you feel that a lot of people who call for like letting more Syrian immigrants into this country, they're people who would actually welcome those immigrants like in their own home or maybe in their own neighborhood, and you feel like it's easy for them to say let's have more, but if it involved them being in their home or perhaps like even down the street or something, they might have a more of an issue with it, and you think they're hypocritical because of that. Did I capture your position correctly?
Exactly. If they're wanting them in so bad, they should take up the responsibility to financially support these people so these people don't become an economic hardship on the United States.
Okay.
They should support them out of their own wallet. Why aren't they willing to do that?
And can I ask you, so Samantha, thank you for calling in and making that point. And can I ask you, in general, do you have any kind of opinion on how President Trump's been doing so far? You think he's been doing a good job, not so good? Are you neutral on it? I just want to ask you that.
Well, he's tougher on issues of radical Islam than I've seen out of Obama ever. But I think that he should step it up to the plate and ban Islam altogether in the United States.
And now,
I really think that we need to take it that far. I do.
Okay, now
Angola.
I'm sorry to interrupt, Samantha. Keep going. I didn't mean to interrupt you. Keep going. I'm sorry.
Yeah, Angola has. They've completely banned it. It's just really sad to see that a third world country has more sense than such a well-developed country as the United States does. Their ideology, their mindset, everything about how they think, it's not going to mix with the West. It's just not. It's completely incompatible.
Now, Samantha, someone might say, well, look, there's a part of the Constitution, like the Establishment Clause, that says that an Equal Protection Clause. There are parts of the Constitution that say that the government can't favor one religion over the other or establish a certain religion.
I know what you're talking about, but the United States of America was built by our founding fathers on a basis of Christian liberty, and to have a lot of other people come in and usurp the Constitution for Sharia law, I'm pretty sure that's not what they had in mind when it came to religious freedom. And Thomas Jefferson himself said that it would be a good idea to ban Islam in the United States.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Samantha, for calling in. Appreciate your perspective, and thanks for watching, and hope you call in again soon if you have another comment you want to make on a future broadcast. So thanks.
Bye-bye.
Have a good one. That was Samantha from Arkansas. If you would like to call in and give your views, we have the number is oh boy, I had it right here and I lost it. I think it's on your screen right now, but. Here we go, 202-470-0049. And, feel free to call in if, in general, we take calls on any kind of event in the news, anything that President Trump might have to deal with, anything he might be involved with policy-wise. But, we don't here at Right Side Broadcasting tell you what to think. We want to hear what you think. And it could be any type of view. Don't think you have to, I have to have view X to call in. We know we have a lot of different viewers with a lot of different views, and we want to hear what you think, and we want to let other viewers hear what you think as well. So feel free to call in, let us know. All we ask is that you keep your calls clean. We want you to keep them clean, or else you cannot be on our airwaves. So let me go back here and just check. I think we had a couple messages here. Yes, this is from Andrew Sova. Andrew Sova writes in, so April Fool's Day is this Saturday. I wonder, I didn't realize it was so close. Thank you for reminding me. Now I'll know, Andrew, weird stuff happens on Saturday, it might be a prank. So April Fool's Day is this Saturday. I wonder, do the liberals have a sick joke planned? How about yourself, Steve? Do you participate? I'm certain Joe has something planned. Oh, as for the Gab site, check out seek.life. I like that more. I like that site more. Okay, so Andrew, you're wondering about April Fool's Day. I tend to not plan on it because I guess people think pranks are fun. I don't think, like, a lot of times when people pull pranks, it's like, oh, you just caused that person distress for a while. So I don't want to cause somebody distressed by pulling a prank on them. But some people like that stuff. That's fine. But you asked, is Joe has something planned? I don't know if Joe has something planned. We'll see, I guess. Maybe he has something planned for you. Who knows? Maybe Jake has something planned. I don't know. We'll see. Or anyone else. Maybe one of the right side moderators has something planned. But I am not aware of any April Fool's plans so far. Maybe that means that everybody's planning some kind of prank on me. But we'll see. We'll see what happens, Andrew. We can ask me next Monday what happened. I hope you don't get pranked too badly, Andrew, on April Fool's Day. Thank you for asking. And Matthew Hebert writes in, he says, I think you're right about April Ryan. I think the media might think Sean was racist if Sean tried to stop her from asking so many questions. I'm sorry, Jake? Say, come again? Oh, okay, let me read this message and then we'll go to that call. So Matthew says, I think you're right about April Ryan. I think the media might think Sean was racist if Sean tried to stop her from asking so many questions. Maybe I'm wrong. My question is, why doesn't the media report on Donald Trump's latest tweet about the money from Russia to Clinton sale of uranium? Okay, a couple different things here. So this is your first point. I was wondering myself, I'm like, why is April Ryan allowed to ask so many questions? Now, the one politically incorrect possibility, but this is a possibility, so I'll say it, and I was thinking about this myself, and Matthew brought it up, is that, like, she is seen, I think she reports for, like, National Urban Radio, so she is seen, like, the idea would be, like, well, if we let her ask more or we don't try to make her ask less, because if we do, she's seen as like the the journalist representing the black press there, and it like looks bad to like not let her ask the question she wants, or it looks bad to like tell her to not, so we give her a little more leeway. Now, I have no idea if this is actually happening, and very well might not be happening, because another reason is I remember, like, I forget the woman's name, but for years she was like always the one. She sat in the front of all like the presidential press conferences, and she passed away a couple of years ago. But she was like very like respected because she'd been there so long. So she always got called on. Now, it's not because she was a certain ethnicity or race or anything. It's just because she'd been there a long time. So it's possible that April Ryan has like a senior, position in the sense of in that room, in that maybe she's been there a really long time, and that's why she gets to ask the question, like more questions than other people. So there's lots of different reasons for this. It could be, I don't know. I do think there must be a reason she's allowed to do this, but I don't know what it is. Look, another reason would just be like she's the only one who's kind of like a jerk enough to ask so many questions, and the other reporters are like, the other reporters might say, well, I'd like to ask 3 questions, but I don't want any of the other reporters to be mad at me. Maybe she's the only one that bothers to ask 3 questions, but I don't know. Look, there's a lot of different reasons. So it's a great question you asked, Matthew. I don't know what the answer is, but we can speculate. And your other question is, why doesn't the media report on Donald Trump's latest tweet about the money from Russia to Clinton sale of uranium? Well, Donald Trump himself wondered that in his tweet. Why isn't that being reported on more? People have been asking that since last year. I leave it to you to come up with an answer as to why it hasn't been reported on more. But for now, we have to get to, we want to get to our call. And this is, I believe it's Yvonne is on the line right now. Yvonne, hello, thank you for calling. Where are you calling from?
Hi, I'm from New York.
New York, so thank you for calling in, Yvonne. So what did you want to say today?
Well, I was, yesterday they had like these congressional hearings, I suppose they're called, and they were talking about auditing the Federal Reserve, which seems, like a good thing to talk about, and I was curious why at any of the press conferences they ever seem to ask about that. They're always talking Russia. But there's a lot going on with the Federal Reserve, but one thing, I don't know if you saw it, but that really caught my attention is that a couple of Congress people that were strongly opposed to it were making these bizarre statements. And there was this one congresswoman, her name was Maloney, and she went on this rant where she said that, and I even wrote it down because I said, that's bizarre. She said, if we shine light on the Federal Reserve, it will undermine public confidence because light, she said this, will stifle the ability of the Federal Reserve to be flexible and creative. And I was like, that's crazy. That's like you're describing vampires or something. You know, like, because they always say, like, oh, don't bring the vampires into the light, or, oh, don't put the light on in the basement because, like, the roach will scatter or something. She actually really said, we can't shine light on it. And I was just wondering, like, how come the news reporters, they never, ever, ever ask questions about anything that happened in Congress? They're always just talking about Russia, 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 you know?
So, Yvonne, I think you're making a good point here, and I appreciate you bringing this up. Now, let me first say, Yvonne, I'll be honest with you, I didn't know this hearing was happening yesterday. I know nothing about it, but I appreciate you.
Oh, okay.
But I appreciate you bringing it up because I will go and do some research on it. So okay. I can't speak to the specific quote because I'd want to know like when exactly it came up in the hearing and what was the context. But let me say this: I think you make a very good point in that, you know, we have the news on, we have all the mainstream media news networks on here at the office all the time, 24 hours a day, and it amazes me like what percentage of the time they're on is taken up with like one or two stories. Like, for example, the last couple of days, it's like all of this, and like you said, it's the Russia stuff the last few days, and it's like, and there's so much stuff going on else that's important to Americans that's not covered at all. And I agree with you that like Americans, if they watch these channels, you know, they're not getting a lot of information that's important to them about other stuff that's going on.
Yeah, not to interrupt, but like the Federal Reserve affects me, my children, my family, my husband, you know what I mean? And there's a lot to it. It's a complicated thing. And actually the Congresswoman said, oh, well, that's, and things that have to do with the Federal, it's so complicated that we can't get involved. And I thought, oh my God, I want to be involved, understanding the complicated aspects of the Federal Reserve. It affects me. But whether or not Donald Trump's second cousin's daughter's niece looked at a Russian one day does not affect me.
Now,
and I don't want to know about it. I don't care. I want to hear reporting about things that affect me. That's really true. That's what you just said is so true.
And and Yvonne, you know, now I will say this about the networks. You know, I don't think they think that there are a lot of people like you out there, and here's the reason why. Because you know they're in this the TV networks, the TV news networks. They're in this, you know, to make money first and foremost. And I remember a couple times, I remember one specific time, I don't know if it was CNN or MSNBC, but they were talking about the health bill when the health bill was being debated. And to understand what was going on with the health bill, you needed to, I won't get all into it, but to understand why it was written the way it was, and there were three phases, and they didn't have certain stuff in it, you had to understand this thing called budget reconciliation. And I remember watching this, they were having this discussion on CNN or MSNBC, and they spent only 45 seconds on budget reconciliation. They didn't really explain it. And then the anchor said oh, well, as soon as we get into that, I'm tuning out, so I don't want to talk about that. So he was admitting on the air, I don't want to talk about this very important thing that you need to understand this issue. And it's because I think they just are worried about viewers tuning out. But from what you're saying, it sounds like you're saying look, I would watch a news network if they actually covered different stuff and got into more important details rather than cover the same stuff over and over again.
Yeah, and they could make it interesting, like budget reconciliation sounds boring, but I'm sure there's a way to make it interesting. Rand Paul does that. Ron Paul does that. They make really boring things sound interesting, you know?
I agree with you on that, and I think there's a great example of that. I don't know if anybody out there has read this book called The Power Broker. It's a book that's very famous from the 70s. It's by this guy, Robert Caro, who wrote a series of biographies about Lyndon Johnson. But basically, this book, I believe it won a Pulitzer Prize. But in the book, you might think it's going to be boring because it's all about local and state politics and about bond issues and about public authorities, and you think that's all going to be really boring. But he writes it like a novel, and I agree with you. And he makes it really exciting. And I agree with you, Yvonne. It's not, you can make stuff interesting. You just have to make an effort to explain it to people and figure out how to make it interesting to people. So I think it's a great point you make.
Yeah. Yeah.
So-
I wish they would do that.
Well, Yvonne, I totally agree with you, and I hope one day they do. And but thank you for calling and saying that. Because
thank you.
It's nice to know that there's other people out there who want more out of their news. But and I'll say this, like that, the stuff you're saying about the TV news is why when I want to understand anything, I don't try to understand it through watching TV news. I go and try to find other sources. And at least we have the internet now, and there are other sources available to you. So
Thank God for that.
I agree. Thank you so much, Yvonne. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Okay, thanks.
Thanks. That was Yvonne from New York. Good to hear from Yvonne. So if you'd like to call in, we're taking some calls today. Really, it's a day, we're taking calls about kind of anything news related. We'd love to hear from you. The number is, I haven't memorized it. It's 202, is it 202-470 something? Let's see. 202, I've almost memorized it. 202-470-0049. And I believe some people might have written in as well, so I want to make sure I get to your comments. Binary Agent wrote, I think you're doing a great job, by the way. I like your objective and fair style. You present as a very approachable and real thinker. Thank you so much, Binary Agent. So you say objective. Really here, I don't feel my job is to really, and our job at Right Side, we don't want to tell you what to think. We want to just bring you information. We want to hear what you have to say. We don't want to make up your mind for you. So we just try to, bring you all the information we can, and we try to, you're part of the network here. You are part of the network. It's not us and you happen to be our audience. We think at Right Side Broadcasting Network, the audience is part of us. The audience is part of the network, and that we like doing this interactive stuff. And also, let me just say, if you enjoy our coverage here, anyone out there, and maybe you're tuning in for the first time, and you enjoy that we bring you the entire Melania Trump event rather than just a little part of it, okay, and we're going to go to another call in a second. But if you enjoy that we cover President Trump's rallies, and we actually interview the people in line, and we actually show the whole rally with all the speakers. If you enjoy our coverage, we hope you consider donating to us, because we rely on your donations to stay on the air. Without your donations, we wouldn't be on the air. And so if you do want to donate, very easy to donate. There's a chat room next to the broadcast. If you just go to the chat room and you click on the $ below the chat room, if you click on that $sign, it lets you donate very easily. The little box comes up and it tells you what to do. Also, if for some reason you can't see the chat, or you're watching this after the fact, you can go to rsbn.tv/donate, rsbn.tv/donate. Your donations keep us on the air and keep us growing here at Right Side, so we thank you for them. We have a call now from Brandon. Brandon, hello. How are you? Where are you calling from?
Hey, Steve. I'm calling from Southern California, near your parts of the woods.
Oh, near L.A.?
Near LA, yeah, close.
Okay, cool.
Cucamonga, it's out kind of towards the I-8, but I just wanted to say, hey, I love what you guys do, your rallies, your shows, your post-game, pre-game analysis. It's great.
Thank you, Brandon. Appreciate it.
Know that.
Thank you.
I wanted to speak to Commissioner Nunes and what's going on with him and how everybody's attacking him for telling the White House what was going on in his investigations, and how all the liberals and even some of the Republicans are attacking him. Mm-hmm. I wanted to see what you thought about that.
So, let me get it. I'm guessing you don't think that the attacks are fair. Am I correct?
Sorry, say that again?
So, Brandon, so before I answer your question, I just want to see, do you have a view on this? Do you think the attacks have been unfair on him, the liberal attacks on Devin Nunes, or do you have no opinion either way on this?
Well, I personally think they are unfair. I mean, I think he found some information out that the President of the United States needed to know, and he told them.
Yeah. So, let's continue. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Brandon. Continue.
Oh no, it's okay. I think that the president has all the clearance and he needs to know this information, and of course he should have been the first to know. And I don't know why everybody's saying that Nunes should, recuse himself. For what? I don't understand.
Yeah, I'm a little confused about this too, because, Brandon, thank you for the question. And so what I'm confused about is, supposedly this information that Devin Nunes got about some surveillance that had been spread around the government that involved President Trump and his associates. Supposedly this surveillance information was not Russia-related. It was not a survey of Russian people that was involved in investigating Russian influence in the election. So if this information that Devin Nunes got wasn't Russia-related, and he took that to the White House, I'm kind of confused on like how that means he's unfit to be running the investigation of the Russia influence in the election. I'm not really, it doesn't all add up to me. And so I would I think I'd like more of a better explanation as to why exactly they're saying he's unfit to lead this investigation. It sounds like you feel the same way.
I do. Yeah, I was just wondering your thoughts on that, because I just everybody's attacking him at the moment and pressuring him to recuse himself, but I don't see any connection, and I fully believe that Donald Trump should get any information that he deserves to receive about this.
Yeah, and I think now I think, Brandon, one thing people might say is like, well, look, he can't be trusted because when Devin Nunes got this information, he was supposed to go to the House Intelligence Committee first, and he didn't. He went to the White House first, and also he got this information at the White House, which shows maybe he's too connected with them or something like that. But, it seems like these arguments are, I'm not convinced yet that he couldn't be a neutral arbiter of this. Also, I just feel like so much energy is being spent on this, whether Devin Nunes recuses himself, which I think ultimately won't make a difference one way or the other. But I do think there's a lot of people out there who I'm sorry, you had something to say about this?
Well, yeah, I think there's a lot of attention being opposed to Nunes versus the actual information, which is Donald Trump and his staff were being surveilled while he was running for office and post. So I think that's the major story, and nobody's talking about it.
And this is something Sean Spicer said yesterday, Devin, in Sean Spicer's briefing yesterday. He said, with this Devin Nunes thing, all of you press are focused on how he got the information, not what the information is. But when it comes to the General Flynn information, you were focused all on the information and not how the information got out there. So Sean Spicer, I think, certainly agrees with you. Well, Brandon, thanks so much for the call. I very much appreciate it.
Yes, thank you, Steve. Look forward to seeing you and Maggie and the rest of the crew at the next rally.
Oh, awesome! Are you going to be there? Are you going to go? Are you on TV?
I don't know where it is, but I watch them all on RSN.
Awesome. I'd say I hope they have one in California, but I'm not holding my breath for that to happen. But we'll see.
Well, probably closer to the primaries in a few years.
Yes, I agree. Or maybe during election time next year too. Great. Thanks so much, Brandon. Appreciate your support.
All right. Thank you, Steve. All right. Bye.
That was Brandon from California. Good to hear from all of you today. If you'd like to call in, 202-470-0049. Did I remember it right? Oh, I'm getting good. I'm getting good remembering 10 digits after a week. Let's see here. Am I caught up in terms of your messages to me? I got to check my email again. Oh, good. Okay, we have another caller. Hold on, I just need to take a drink real quick. Oh, Greg just wrote in the name of that. Helen Thomas was her name. So Greg writes in, that reporter I was talking about who used to sit in the front of all the White House press conferences and was allowed to ask a question every time. That was Helen Thomas. And Greg also says she really raised an uproar with her remark against Jews. I don't exactly remember this. I need to go look it up. It feels like something I at one point knew about and I've forgotten. So I need to look that up later. But thank you, Greg. Hold on, Jerry, 1 second. I need to take a drink of water. We have Jerry on the line. Hello, Jerry. Where are you calling from today?
Hey, Steve. I'm calling from Texas.
Great. So, Jerry, welcome to the show. What were you calling about?
Hey, thanks, Steve. I just wanted to call in and just speak to these federal judges who have been blocking Trump's travel ban, and these federal judges, who have been doing unconstitutional things just for political purposes. And I just hope that all of this brings about a greater attention to these judges in our federal judicial system. And I hope that people start, demanding from their congressmen to at least begin speaking about impeaching these judges, who have obviously had a record of bad behavior. I don't know why I've never heard any congressman at all ever talk about impeaching judges. I mean, I understand they are appointed to a lifetime tenure, but there is a solution to unconstitutional judges who have actually become an enemy of the people of the United States of America, and that's our Congress, because they hold the power. to impeach these judges, you know?
Jerry, I think, just to recap what you first said, you were talking about, you feel that the judges who've come out with these rulings against President Trump's travel ban, have come out with these temporary restraining orders, you feel that at heart, they're not really deciding their cases on the legal merits. You feel that they have political biases, and that's why they're making the decisions they are making, correct?
Oh, yeah, I strongly feel that. And I think these are just two it's just a really small sample, but I think for the past decade, or even for the past few decades, people just don't pay attention to, what our judges are doing. It's probably the most unmonitored branch of our government, because Congress and the president, they're always in the spotlight. Right. These judges, if people start researching what these judges have been doing, they will see many, many examples of very bad behavior.
It's an interesting point you bring up, Jerry, about how not that much attention is paid to them as opposed to like the legislative branch and the executive branch. I do think one reason for that is that, if you want to understand what a judge is doing and like do research, it's like hard work. You have to like go get the actual legal opinions, which are these big documents, and you have to read through them and understand all this legal language and be able to understand what their reasoning is. And it takes somebody with like some sort of legal background to really understand what they're arguing. So it's harder for people to like sort of keep tabs on what these judges are doing. I will say this though, and I said this on the air when it came out, like the latest ruling, the Hawaii judges ruling, the ruling that put the temporary restraining order on the current version of the travel ban. To me, I thought that ruling had serious problems with it, because basically what the Hawaii judge said is like any objective person would think that this travel ban was really a Muslim ban in disguise. And when I read that, I was like, well, I'm an objective person and I don't think that. So I thought there were serious problems with this ruling. Now, the problem though is, I do think, Jerry, that if it turned out that you could prove a judge was like not really deciding cases on the basis of the law and just deciding them on the basis of political bias, that could be grounds for removal. The problem, of course, is proving that, because these judges do write opinions, and any judge, whether it's on the right or the left, can always say, well, that's why I wrote the opinion. I wrote the opinion that way because I really believed it. So also there could be issues where they have these political biases and they think they're being neutral, but their biases are kind of affecting how they act. So the bottom line, I guess, is that it's a very, very hard thing to prove a judge is letting their politics decide the issues or not. So it could be a tough road, but I appreciate your view, which is like judges are very important, and what they do has important effects, and it's not as focused on in the media as the other two branches of government. So I think you make a good point there.
Yeah, and Steve, you do speak to a good point. It is very hard because they hide behind that veil of legalese and all that. But Steve, in my view, there is something that will cut through all of that, and that is this: the principle that our government is for the people and by the people. So ultimately, even the judges themselves are held to account to the American people. And the thing is that the American people can't really hold them to account when media outlets only cover instances of bad behavior when it suits viewership. I always thought the media, it's always about money ultimately. But if there are media outlets, and I believe there are, and I believe every media outlet should make it a point to try and just get information out there, about. They don't have to go over all the legal, details of everything, but just, there's always a way to put things in simple terms, and just people just need to be made aware, and at least start having a discussion about this in politics. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and I think Jerry, a lot of people are like you out there who want more information than they're getting from the mainstream media. But I also think that that's a big reason why you're starting to see lots of there's all these alternate news sites, new media sites like on the internet that never existed 10 years ago, and those just seem to be growing because I think people want more information. So I do think, ultimately what's got to happen is if the mainstream media is not going to give any of us the information we want, it's up to us to sort of turn to other sources and find it. So we might ultimately just have to, not rely on mainstream media so much and just know that they're not going to give us that much information. That's certainly, but it's an option we have now because, with the internet and with these other news sources, that information can be a bit tough to find. But like, for example, like if I want to go read a judge's ruling, I can just go online and find it. But it might take a little more legwork to get the information you want. But I think you make a good point about judges, how they're important and not that much talked about, and how they, you think they should be answerable to the people ultimately, and you're dissatisfied with them. And I've heard this, I think a number of other viewers, a number of other Americans feel the same way. So I really appreciate you calling in, Jerry.
All right, thanks, Steve.
Have a good one, Jerry. That was Jerry from, I think he said, I want to say, from Texas. I think he said Texas. That's where he was from. Cool. So excellent calls today. Very impressed. Also, I'm very impressed. Okay, cool. And so I'm very impressed with the range of topics. See, that's also a great thing about hearing from you is we can say what we think is in the news and what people are talking about, but like when you reach out to us, like you remind us of all these things that are important to every Americans that we might have forgotten about. So we heard about like judges today and like, the Federal Reserve and a bunch of different things. And it's like, it's good to hear from Americans what they care about. And as a caller, a couple of callers have talked about this today, how mainstream media focuses on so few issues during a given day. It's like all like the same one or two things basically. And there's so many other things out there people care about. So really great to hear from you. I just want to check, we have time for one more call today. But I want to just make sure I'm caught up in terms of comments here. I think I'm caught up. Let's see. Oh, I think we have one more message from Greg. Oh, okay, so we're going to go to one more call in a second. Greg, you wrote in Evelyn Farkas, the Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense. She made remarks on MSNBC that certainly implied the Obama White House was directly involved with spying on Trump. I will have to watch this later. This is from Conservative Treehouse. Okay, I think somebody else messaged me about this before. I will watch this video later today. Appreciate you writing in. Also, just remember that at 3 p.m. Eastern, which is an hour and a half from now, we will be carrying live I'm forgetting the exact name of it. I want to say it's like the Empowering Women Forum or the Empowering Women discussion. This is at the White House. President Trump will be there. Betsy DeVos will be there. Nikki Haley will be there. Linda McMahon will be there. So it should be a cool thing to watch. Melania might or might not be there. I'm not sure. But we'll be carrying that live. So Women's Empowerment Panel coming to you from the White House. We'll be carrying it live. It's here at 3 p.m. Eastern, so join us for that. Okay, we have time for one more call, and this is from Jake. Who is it? Jake? This is from James. James, hello. Where are you calling from?
Hey, I'm calling from Massachusetts.
Can I ask where? I'm from Newton, James. Are you close to Newton?
Hi, from Newton. I'm from around the Boston area.
Okay, cool. So we'll say hi to Massachusetts from me. I've heard it's been very, very, very cold this March. So I'm sorry for you.
Yeah, it has been. We've had some pretty bad weather, and it's spring now, so it's kind of annoying.
Well, I hope it gets warm soon there. I sympathize. And James, what do you want to talk about today?
I just wanted to open up some conversation about, the whole Trump aspect of things, and I really think that, space cowboys eat cheese 3 times a day.
And James, I'm sorry, James, to interrupt you. I'm getting a little volume of something else behind you. I don't know if it's like a speaker or a TV or something, but if you could turn that down a little bit, then I can hear exactly what you're saying.
He hung up.
Oh, he hung up. I guess he hung up because I wanted to hear what he was saying. I was hearing 2 voices at once.
Space cowboys eat cheese 3 times a day.
Oh, is that what he said?
That's what he said.
Oh, okay. So he said something. It wasn't a swear. It just kind of made no sense. So I won't say that on the air, Jake, but it's not really offensive. It's just kind of sort of confusing. Anyways, what?
It sounds like me.
It sounds like you? Anyways, I'll keep having this conversation with Jake that you all can't hear. I apologize for that. But thank you, Jake. So, yeah, we took a. So, Jake, we have to get off now? Is that what it is? Or are we trying to take one more call?
We'll take one more.
Since that wasn't like a real call, we'll try to take one more call. It's been pretty good. Like I thought we might get more kind of like prank calls, but it's been. I think that might have been the first one we got. So, but it happens. We're ready though. We're ready, but hopefully there's not too many. But if somebody wants to call, we have a couple minutes left on the air. We'll take one more call, 202-470-0049. But we have this thing coming up at 3 today, and tomorrow we'll be covering the Sean Spicer press briefing. Oh, I should mention our programming tonight at Right Side Broadcasting. 8 p.m., we have America First with Nick Fuentes. 9 p.m. Eastern, Wayne Dupree Show. 10 p.m. Eastern, Right Mindset with Mike Cernovich, the Right Mindset with Mike Cernovich. Mike Cernovich, who was prominently featured in 60 Minutes story on fake news on Sunday. They interviewed Mike Cernovich an extensive amount, and Mike had some interesting things to say, so I would encourage you to watch that. And but watch all their shows tonight here at Right Side Broadcasting. And I want to do one more check before we go, just to make sure I'm caught up with everything. Oh, we have Dejected Prescription says, thanks for taking my call today. Love you and the rest of the crew. Thank you for calling in, Dejected Prescription, but I'm not sure which caller you were. So if you want to tell me, you can. You don't have to, though. It can remain a mystery. I didn't know it was you. But Dejected Prescription called in today. I know... I just hope, Dejected Prescription, it wasn't the final call, which was like the prank call, but I assume it was one of the other calls. But appreciate you calling in. Appreciate everybody calling in today. I should also remind you, if you want to follow Right Side Broadcasting on Twitter, please follow us. It's at RSB Network. You'll hear latest updates about what's going on with us. You can follow me on Twitter at @Lookner, at LOOKNER. You can follow our producer, Jake, who's also our music guy, at Jake, I never remember. Never. Tell me what your Twitter is. Jacob RSBN Music. Jacob is supposedly working on a new breaking news music theme for Right Side Broadcasting, which I'm very excited about. I'm specifically excited about one idea that Jake and I had discussed, but I'm not going to say it now because I don't want to commit to Jake for anything, but I think it would be great. So we have that to look forward to. And thank you, Jake, for producing today. And also, if you want to, another place we post a lot of stuff is Facebook. So if you haven't, like us on Facebook. Go to Right Side Broadcasting on Facebook. We're there. Give us a like. Or follow us. I guess you can do either. Follow or like or both. Fine with us. And Jake, I don't think we do, if we don't have anyone on the line right now, am I correct, Jake? Not yet. So, all right, so we'll go a couple more minutes, and we'll take one more call here. And if you want to call, it's did I memorize yet? 202-470-0049. We'll also be covering, around the office, we've been wondering, is there going to be another rally soon? So I'm thinking like, President Trump had a couple rallies when talking about the health care bill. So maybe if he moves on to something else, he'll have a couple more. Also, President Trump said a couple weeks ago, I'm going to try to have them every couple weeks. So we'll see if that happens. If he does, we will be there to cover them live. We love covering them for you. I was wondering myself, so the last two rallies were in Kentucky and Nashville. If he has another one, and when he has another one, where might that be? And I'm wondering, is he going to stick with that region? Would he go to, for example, would he go back to Chicago? Because remember when he went to Chicago in the election, there was all that violence there that was stirred up by people who wanted to cause trouble, and they had to cancel the rally. Would he go for one of these rallies to, a more liberal place? Or is he going to stick with places that tend more conservative? Although I will say this, Louisville is it's actually a liberal town, city. Louisville, the county that Louisville, Kentucky is in, went 56-40 for Hillary, even though the state itself was heavily President Trump. So it's not like he only goes to conservative places, but I was just wondering, we were speculating before, would he go do a rally in California or something? So I'm kind of just interested to see with the rallies, is he going to stick in the same region? Is he going to go to different regions? Where does he go? Would he ever go to Hawaii for a rally? I'd like to go to Hawaii and cover a rally. I'd go to Alaska and cover a rally. That's a long trip, though. So we'll see. We will see if he does any more. Well, I'm sure he'll do more rallies, but where they end up being. And if you want to get a comment in, well, actually, we have a comment right here. If you want to get one in before we go off the air today, either write me on Twitter at Lookner, at Lookner, or direct message me, direct message me on Twitter or email me at steve.lookner@rsbn.tv. Andrew Sova says, I'm glad you asked this question, Andrew. You said, Steve, I was curious, when will the gun show with Joe Biggs premiere? So, a couple months ago, we posted a video from Joe Biggs, which was like an intro video to this thing called the Gun Show, which he was working on. And the plan was to run the show at RSBN. Now, as far as I'm aware, Joe is still working on this show, and it wasn't, the original plan was to have it be on RSBN, but then he was thinking of having it be on RSBN and his own thing, or maybe his own thing, and this never got hammered out for sure. And as far as I'm aware, the episodes aren't done yet. So that's the best I can do for you right now. If the episodes get finished and Joe wants RSBN to air them, we will air them. But Joe had been thinking of doing some other stuff with it, so I don't know exactly where it stands, but I've given you the information that I personally have. So if we find out more, we'll let you know. But you might have been wondering about that, so I appreciate you asking that question, Andrew. Okay, we have here, I'm checking my email. And I also want to check here what, there is this interesting thing that I think is worth reading up on. I forgot to talk about this today, and I wanted to at least mention it. That, I read this interesting article about how, so there's this budget reconciliation procedure that the Republicans can use once a year to pass a bill through the Senate with only 50 votes rather than 60 votes. They can do this once a year. Now, they had been trying to do that with health care, but health care never got to the Senate because it didn't get out of the House. So you might think, now they can just use budget reconciliation for tax reform. That's what I thought. But I read this thing yesterday which said that it's not so simple because, to use this budget reconciliation procedure, they had to do something like they had to file some document about something. It's something like they had to file some document which said how much money they might spend on healthcare or how much money they might spend on whatever they're going to deal with in budget reconciliation. And so the bottom line is they had to do some stuff before proposing the healthcare bill to commit them to certain things, and they did this thing with it being in mind that they were going to do health care with the budget reconciliation this year and not tax reform with the budget reconciliation. And the bottom line of all this is that if they use the budget reconciliation procedure on something else besides health care this year, that'll restrict what they can do. So if they try to do tax reform this year and they try to use a special procedure, budget reconciliation, to allow them to pass it through the Senate with only 50 votes, that seriously will restrict the kind of tax reform bill they can have. And they don't have, whereas if they wait until 2018 to do the tax reform stuff, they'll have much more freedom. I think this was a Wall Street Journal article last night or this morning that talked about this. But that was interesting, and that was something I didn't realize. So that would be a reason for them to want to wait to do tax reform next year that I didn't realize until I read about this. So I thought that was interesting. Sean C. writes in. Sean C. says, what do you think will happen with the American Health Care Act? Do you think they will make a revised version? Oh, this was yesterday. Today you wrote in, sorry, Sean. Sean, you wrote in today, Nashville was also a city that went for Hillary and is the state capital, and Louisville is Kentucky's largest city. Maybe Trump is going to the large cities in conservative states. This is an interesting point. So Nashville, you're saying, I want to look this up. Can I look this up quickly and not bore you? Nashville 2016 election. Let's see if I can find out what the election results were. So Tennessee county by county results. I like it. Okay, I'm getting close here. I'm seeing the election results map. Hopefully on my iPad. No, now I'm seeing an ad. I don't want that. Okay, thank you. See, this is taking a little while. I'm going to give it 2 more seconds because this is a really good question, actually. Okay, here's Tennessee. Oh, I don't know which county Nashville is, though. All right, I'm going to stick on for a minute. Nashville County. Some of you probably know the answer, and you're like, Steve, if I could just shout at my computer right now, you would know and not have to look it up. Is in Davidson County, okay? Now I'm going to go back to my map and see. This is fascinating to me, at least. Madison County, Harwood County, Shelby County. Well, unfortunately here, I'm looking for Davidson County. Oh, here it is. Okay. Thank you for writing this in. Davidson County, where Nashville is, went 60-34 for Hillary. Wow. But the state of Tennessee went 61-34 for Donald Trump. So it's very similar to Louisville and Kentucky. So this is an interesting theory. I like this theory a lot. There may be something to this. This is from Sean. Sean says, both Louisville and Nashville are cities, are liberal-leaning cities in conservative states. And is that the reason he went to both of those for their rallies? Now, also, I think an important reason he went to these states for these rallies is they had people in the Senate who, I can't remember exactly, I used to know this fact and I forget things so fast, but something like there were senators there in these states that were on the fence about the health care bill, and it was thought to that by going to these states, that would be a way to get more Senate votes. But maybe part of the reason the senators are on the fence is that they're in these places that, you know, the state votes one way, but the counties vote another way, and maybe, I'm not sure what the Senate elections are, maybe the Senate elections would be a little closer in those states, I don't know. So I'd have to do more research on this, but it's interesting to think about. But I appreciate you, Sean, pointing out that interesting similarity with both Nashville and Louisville where the 2 rallies were at. So thank you for writing in and telling us that. Jake, how are we doing out there? I'm checking in with you. Okay, so we are going to wrap it up for today here on our post-coverage of the Sean Spicer press briefing. Thank you so much for all your comments and your calls. Excellent comments, excellent calls. Great hearing from all of you. Please join us very shortly in an hour and 15 minutes for the Women's Empowerment Panel from the White House. President Trump will be there. Betsy DeVos will be there. Linda McMahon will be there. Nikki Haley will be there. Some other people will be there, and that should be interesting, so we hope you join us for that. And join us tomorrow for the Sean Spicer press briefing. We'll be covering them all this week, as we always cover them. And if you missed the briefing and you missed any of it, you can always go back and watch it on our YouTube page, Right Side Broadcasting on YouTube. We keep all the briefings up there for you. So hope you've enjoyed the broadcast. Follow us on Twitter, at RSB Network. Follow me on Twitter if you want, at Lookner. Follow Jake on Twitter. And Jake, I know I asked you 5 minutes ago, but it's like Jake Music something or other, right? I never remember what Jake's Twitter is. He'll tell me at some point what it is. Look up Jake Seals on Twitter. Follow him. And subscribe to us on YouTube and click the notifications icon so you can get notified about all our videos. Thank you to the moderators for moderating today. Hope you consider giving us a donation. We survive on the basis of your donations, as I explained before. Since the chat room is going to disappear in a second, you can go to rsbn.tv/donate, rsbn.tv/donate. For now, I am Steve Lookner, here for everybody at Right Side Broadcasting. Thank you for joining us for the press briefing, and we will see you very soon. Have a good day.